Record.
Teens with dreams. Teens with dreams.
This is the Legion.
Teens with dreams, yeah. All I wanna do is me when I grow up. Teens with dreams, yeah. All I wanna do is me when I grow up. Teen with a dream don't get no harder. Gets easy once you started. No use in running away. Mr. Panting said you got it.
Yeah, you got that, and it feels so good to be on track. Even when you fall down, ain't no other way around. Your success is determined by your bounce back. Dream.
Welcome to Hamilton Radio. This is Ava Holly with Ava's Casual Chat and Mr. Panting Productions and Teens with Dreams. So welcome. We'd like to welcome our special guest, Jordan Rhodes, today. And first, I'd like to give a shout out to our radio sponsor, and you know her well, Mr. Rhodes, International Internet Radio Hall of Fame radio host, Miss Jerry Petito. And she couldn't be with us today because she had some family things to do. So we'll give a shout out to Jerry and all you guys at Hamilton Radio for making us look so good. Although it is 1:20 as we're starting now with those little glitches like we get now that we're doing all this virtual stuff, right? So Jordan, let me introduce you to Marco here. So he has his show. He has his show Teens with Dreams, and we kind of smash the shows together since we're on once a month, so we put our shows together. So that's the intro you heard was written by the Logan brothers, and I'm singing the first two lines, and they wrote that specifically for the Teens with Dreams show, so that's what we use for the intro. And, Marco does things not only that where he inspires teens and works with other teens, but has all kinds of people inspire teens. So at some point during our talk, I'm going to ask you, so think about this, what advice you would give to a young person that wants to follow their dreams. So we'll leave that for a little bit later as we talk about your marvelous book that I absolutely thoroughly enjoy. And let me see if I can get it in the screen here. Look, we match. Awesome. That's awesome. So Jordan, tell us a little bit about yourself. And, I know many people will recognize you. However, how'd you get started? How'd you get the idea to do the book and all that? Give us a little background.
Well, first of all, for the people that don't know me, and I'm fortunate that a lot of people do kind of know me today, but I have been called a quintessential working actor, whatever that is. My career spans literally, the PR says 5 decades, it's really 6 decades. And of course, I've done over 200 films and television shows and all of that. I've been acting my entire adult life. The book came about because Leo Penn, who is Sean Penn's dad, he really put my career on the map. And Leo and I got to be very good friends. He cast me in a very big show, Marcus Welby's show, out at Universal years ago when they wanted one of the to do the thing. And it was one of the first times that Marcus Welby had ever done a show that was based on a true story about a young girl, a reporter, that came down with spinal meningitis and went to a rehabilitation center, and that's where she met this young guy, Bobby Hershey, who was a truck driver who had an accident and he was paralyzed. And that was the role that I played, Bobby Hershey. And Sean Barbara Allen, wonderful actress, she played the young girl. And over the years, Leo and I became very good friends, and I knew, of course, his sons, Sean Penn. Everybody is very aware of Sean Penn. Chris Penn, who unfortunately passed away at a very early age. And Michael Penn, which people don't talk about a lot, but Michael is an incredible composer of music. He scores films and everything else. And their mother, Eileen Penn, Eileen Ryan, like Leo, they both were quite formidable actors in New York before they ever moved out to California. And Eileen basically gave up her career to raise the 3 boys. And then she started back acting again after they were all grown. And I did a role with her on Bonanza, which was really interesting. So I got to know the family really well. And I used to tell Leo all these stories about my background because every summer, not because we were wealthy, and that's where I went for a vacation, but every summer I was shipped off to my uncle's tobacco farm, and he was a sharecropper in North Carolina. All four people, and I would go down there and I would work the entire summer with him, and of course with his kids that were there. So that was kind of my background, and I had all of these wonderful stories. I have some very colorful people in my family line, not that, but colorful people. My dad was one, and he conned a lot of these sayings and things. One of the funny things on the farm is that my Uncle Paul moved so often that they said this thing about that whenever the chickens would see them putting boxes together, the chickens would lay down on the ground and cross their legs. So anyway, I'd tell you all these stories, and Leo said to me one day, he said, "Kid, you got to write this stuff down. It's gold." And then he kept telling me I need to write a book. And I said, Leo, who really cares about reading a book about me? And this is what he said to me. He said, "Jordan, I'll tell you what. You tell me one other actor that comes from your background that's making a living in this business and has been invited to the Queen's House, Buckingham Palace, for a cocktail reception hosted by Prince Philip, who just passed away, as we all know. Mm-hmm. You tell me one other actor that's done that, and I'll tell you, don't write your book." And so I said, well, obviously, there is no other actor that came from the tobacco farm and went to Buckingham Palace and all of that. Right. So I sat down and over the years started writing my book, but the pandemic, which was the only good thing to come out of the pandemic for me, because as you guys would know, everybody in this business has been out of work for over a year. Yeah. I sat down during the pandemic, and for 67 days, I wrote at least 4 hours a day, sometimes 5, sometimes 6. And Ava, you would know because your husband was the copy editor on my book. Yes. And my book is 397 pages. And that's how it came about. I just sat down and started writing it. And so far, the reception I've got has been very good. I've had people say things which I like. They say, "Boy, it was like sitting in a room talking to you, Jordan, because you write the same way you talk." So well,
am I saying this correctly, where we want to tell people to go and buy the book? They go to abluecollaractor.com and they can buy the book there, correct?
Yes, www.abluecollaractor.com, and it is being released April 16th.
April 16th, they're going to have a big release, so I'm so excited and happy and honored that you're on the show today, so we can talk about this wonderful book. I really enjoyed reading it, and makes me think that what makes us go on when you go through some of the things that you've gone through in this book. And guys, you got to pick up this book because it's really, really, really good, written really well, and it's going to take you to a place, maybe not exactly the same struggles that you went through, but I'm sure there are many things in your book that people can relate to. So what is it that makes us go on when you have some of the things that happen to you? How do you go on to the next step? Or do you not even think about that and you just do it?
No, I really think it's funny because as long as I've been doing this, and prior to the pandemic, I did a lot of these things called nostalgia celebrity conventions. And I felt really honored that I would go and see friends of mine like Robert Wagner, Stephanie Powers. The list just goes on and on and on. Of all these, what I consider to be real stars, people. Mm-hmm. And I would go to these things. And they've asked me on 2 or 3 occasions if I would sit on some of the panels. And the panels, of course, are when the public comes in and they ask questions of the actors that are there. And the last panel that I did, which was in a big celebrity convention in Maryland, I think now it's going on 2 years ago, it's the first time that anybody in an audience ever asked me why I became an actor. And it was interesting because, and I will answer your question about how you continue going on, because, and I don't want to jump all around, but I will tell you this, the same business that Marco is in and trying to do, you can't do what any of us do in the entertainment area, and in entertainment, I mean everything. acting, writing, directing, producing, music, musical direction, musician, anything, you cannot do it if you're not dedicated. Because if you start off doing it thinking that, boy, this is going to be the easy way that I'm going to really make some money, well, go get a lottery ticket, because you have to be dedicated to it to do it. So that's what keeps you going on, because once you're dedicated and you're doing something, I did correct a friend of mine recently. He said that if you love what you do, you really don't consider what you're doing work.
Correct.
And I went back to him and said, wait a minute. What do you mean you don't consider it work? You're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and rapping at 8 o'clock at night. And
it's still work. You just happen to love it.
Right. And you come back tired, and maybe you've been on a dusty location and everything. And I never got in the exotic locations. My locations were always Apache Junction, Arizona, Shooting Creek, Colorado. Well, you know, those were all my locations. I was always running into acting buddies of mine like Joe Don Baker, who, and back to the nostalgia convention thing, I'll tell you something funny that Joe Don said. Joe Don Baker would, you know, he did these movies all over the world, and hopefully the viewers and the listeners will remember him for Walking Tall. But Joe Don Baker's had really quite a wonderful career. He's retired now. But when he knew I was doing these nostalgia celebrity conventions, Joe called me up one day, and he said, he's got this Texas accent, and of course he plays a lot of tough guys and all of that, but he's really a really sweet, nice man, hardly uses any profanity. And he called me up on the phone and he said, Jordan, he said, I finally figured out what a nostalgia celebrity is. And I said, yeah. I said, well, what exactly is it? He said, it's an old actor with a lot of credits.
Well, I'll tell you, you know, you're talking about the pandemic. I know Marco and I have really, like, it shut us down emotionally. So, I mean, just this last couple days, you know, they say things happen by happenstance. We were meeting with a friend of ours, and one thing led to another, and we're picking up a project that just kind of died during the pandemic, and both of us got re-energized, right? Both of us just got re-energized in a way that we haven't felt in almost a year. So, you know, can certainly relate to that, being dedicated and, you know, having to step back into a role that may have, you know, gotten away from us for a little bit. What do you want to tell us about?
I'm sorry, but I try to cover a lot of that in my book. I hope that my book gives encouragement, not just to people that want to act, but I hope that they will find in my book that if somebody like me, Jordan Rhodes, can go on to, and using words like achievement, you know, you can use that word, but I prefer to just say work, but can go on to work in the field that they've chosen, that it should be hope for everybody. Because I had no connections, none at all. I had no wealthy people in my family, and I'm not dogging anybody that has connections and has money. I mean, that's great.
Right.
I didn't have a brother, sister, aunt, uncle, great-grandfather. Nobody was in the business. In fact, when I was a young guy, they all said, you see in my book, some of the things about, they said that was just a crazy kid. I'm a crazy kid, that kid, you know. And I had one of my uncles, when I had become quite successful in California, I went back for a family reunion. And my Uncle Paul came over to me, and he said, you out there in California now? I said, yeah. He said, what you doing out there? And I said, I'm acting, Uncle Paul. And he said, you still doing that acting stuff? And I said, yeah. What are you doing to make a living? And I said, well, I'm making a living. And he said, you're making a living doing that acting stuff? And I said, yeah, I'm making a living. He said, well, he said, they pay you anything for that stuff? And I had just finished, so I had to hit him with it. And I said, well, I said, I just finished a show, Uncle Paul. I worked 6 days, and they paid me $5,000. And he went, what? You made $5,000 for 6 days? I said, yeah. And he said, boy, I guess that acting stuff's working out okay for you.
I remember that from the book, something like that in the book. And I'm telling you,
that was just my family's attitude. And of course, my mother, God bless her. She always supported me. I felt so happy that years later I was able to fly her to places like California, New York, when I was doing plays and things like that, and have her come and see that stuff. And of course, when I'd go down to visit her in North Carolina, one time they sent a reporter out to her house to do a big story. My mom worked back there her whole life, and she just got a big kick out of that because it was in the paper that her son, this actor, had come there. But my dad, on the other hand, who in the book you find out, my dad was an alcoholic, and my dad was a pretty good guy up to about my age of 13, and then the booze got hold of him, and everything went to hell. But it's so funny, in Baltimore, when he was on Skid Row and then living there on Baltimore, the way he used to tell people that his son was an actor, because I don't think he ever saw me in a single thing, but the big business to him was Arthur Godfrey. So he used to tell people when he said, yeah, my boy's on Arthur Godfrey's show. That was the show of my life. But that was kind of the difference in my mom and my dad. My mom really followed my career. Of course, she was remarried again and all of that. But back to how you hang in is that you just, this came up the other night. Somebody said in my book, I seem to write a great deal about the rejections and the roles I lost as much as I write about the roles that I got. And I think that's important. And I tell the young actors that when you go on these jobs, the best thing that I feel as an actor you can ask for, and my training, I don't want to blow horns or anything, but I've worked with a lot of people that are really big in the business, like Lee Strasberg. Everybody knows Lee Strasberg's name. Sure. Lee Strasberg takes credit for a lot of people that he had nothing to do with. Lee Strasberg, by the way, and I don't care if anybody criticizes me for this, was not responsible for Marlon Brando. Stella Adler was responsible for Marlon Brando. But Brando did go to the actor studio, and the actor studio is really associated with Lee Strasberg. So I studied with people like Lee Strasberg. Carl Redkop was the best teacher I ever had, because he just had a way of making you feel good about the good parts of what you had done in a scene, and then his criticism on the bad parts and what you could work on came kind of secondary. So I would tell these young actors, and I did this the other night when I was talking, when you go on an audition and you go in, when you come out of that audition, if you believe and feel that you have done the best that you can do, then you have to let it go. You have to let it go, and you have to walk away from it, because if you feel that you did the best you could do, now if you come out of there and you think, boy, I could have done this, then go back and work some more, study some more. But if you come out of an audition and you feel, no matter what it is, if it's a musical audition, it's a technical thing you're doing, if you come out and you feel that you've done the best that you can do, that is all anybody can ask of themselves, is to do the best that you can do. The rest of it is out of our hands.
And that's true with anything in life, right? That's true with anything. You can only do the best you can do,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you just, I've been so lucky over the years. I remember years ago I met George Burns, and he talked to a group of us young actors. And I wasn't doing his comedy or anything. He said something that I, to this day, still just stays with me. I don't even know if it's in my book. But he said, learn to fall in love with your work, because all of us, most of us, are going to have to work for our lives, our entire lives. And if you fall in love with your work, you will enjoy it, and you'll enjoy your life a whole lot better. And he's absolutely true. Because I love it. It's great. Yeah, and I years ago, when I was really what I call it at my prime, doing a lot of television shows, a lot of movies, and all of that. There were a couple of parties out in California I used to go to. Elizabeth Allen, who since has passed away, but people would know her from Broadway, and she played Paul Lynn's wife on all of Paul Lynn's shows. And she worked with John Wayne and Donovan's Reef, and she was a big, and she was big on the soap opera. She was a really big actress, a wonderful, wonderful lady. And she used to have parties at her house all the time where I would meet a lot of these people, like Paul Lynn, who's still to this day one of the funniest men I've personally ever met. I mean, Paul was really a funny guy. And of course, he get a little frosty sometimes, but he was, that's when he had a few too many margaritas. But we were out there, and there was this one guy that for 3 years, the third year I finally put a stop to it. But he used to always single me out at these parties. And he was a very, very successful real estate guy, selling real estate in Malibu and all that stuff. But he had started out trying to be an actor, and it didn't work for him. He couldn't make a living as an actor. But he used to single me out, and he would come to these parties, and he'd come over to me, and his dialogue was always the same. He'd come over to me, and he'd say, "Yeah, I see you're doing quite well. I saw you on that big miniseries, that thing you're doing great, Reverend Tech, and yeah. So you're working a lot." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm doing fine." He said, "I understand you bought a house over here in Studio." I said, "Yeah. I got in those days. I had a house, I had a Mercedes, I had a Porsche, I had a sailboat, I had 2 quarter horses." And he said, he said, I just got tired of that business. He said, that you got to knife everybody in the back to get ahead in that business. And I just couldn't knife those people in the back. And I looked at him and I said, "Really?" I said, "Gee, I don't know. I've been in the business now about 18 years, and I haven't knifed a single person in the back." I walked away. But he used to do that to me every time. And the third time, I just said to him at the party, because I've only seen him once a year, thank God. I said to him at the party, I said, "Look, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to mention his name, but I said, look, you don't need to have these conversations with me. You don't have to convince me that you feel badly or whatever that you got out of the business or whatnot." I said, "But don't keep coming over here and ragging on me that I have to do terrible things to people in order to make a living in my chosen profession, because I don't have to do that."
A lot of people think that. A lot of people think that that's how you get ahead, and it's so horrible when people think that. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, you don't, and I'm pleased to say that I've worked with some of the biggest names in this industry, and for the most part, not all, because everybody is good in everything, but for the most part, they have all been terrific people. They really have. They've been good people, and of course, there are some that get up there, and I had the occasion to work with a young girl that was just wonderful to work with in this film that I did with her, and I'm not going to mention her name. And I played a bad, evil guy, and I did some horrible things to her without telling her, and she just reacted great to it. But she got out to California, and because she had this one lead role, she kind of turned into a bit of a diva. And that's to me, that's unfortunate, because people like James Garner and R.J. Wagner, Robert Wagner, his wife Jill St. John. I worked with Jill on one of her very first things in New York years ago when, of course, I didn't know her at that time. I mean, I knew who she was because she was just starting out. She didn't have a name then. But she was the lead in the show that I had a very small part in, Mr. Hollywood, I think it was called. It was a detective series with Craig, what's his name, who looked so much like Cary Grant. But I knew her then. But Jill St. John, R.J., Robert Wagner, James Garner, Carl Malden, because he was responsible for me getting the street to San Francisco. But he was just wonderful. And I'm not talking about doing favors or telling you every day how wonderful you are and all this stuff. I'm just talking about people helping you out and being able to come over and work with you, things like that. Darren McGavin was another terrific guy.
Jordan, Robert and Jill did Heart to Heart, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah. Well, Robert Wagner did, and Stephanie Powers did Heart to Heart.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And I remember Jill St. John, too. I remember her also. But Robert did the forward for your book, correct?
Oh, yeah. Jill St. John and Robert Wagner both wrote the forward to my book, which really made me feel really good. It was like this one. And he's been great to me because you may know, Ava, I think we spoke about this. Now it's about 4 years ago. I was literally on location in North Carolina to do a film I wrote called McCabe and Little Jesse. A really wonderful film. We were in pre-production for 5 weeks down there, and we got ripped off. The people that were supposedly putting the money together, and I lost a lot of money. The investors lost a lot of money because these people didn't have the money, and they did that to us. But I had deals with people like Robert Wagner, John Amos, Catherine Mary Stewart, Peter Jason. I had deals with those people because they were all doing roles in the film. And they really kind of let me off the hook because they could have had their agents come to me for pay or play, even though the film bombed.
Right.
Not only did they, RJ, I stayed in North Carolina about another 7-10 days after this thing had collapsed. And he called me down there every day. He would not want me saying this, but he called me down there every day. And he would say, "How you doing?" And I'd start to tell him something about the film I was trying to say. I'm not talking about the film. He said, "How are you doing? You doing okay?" And I said, yeah, I'll be fine. Peter Jason and his agent, I've known Peter for years. We had the same agent one time in California. They called me from California and wanted to know if I needed some money. Could they help me? I said, no. I said, I'm okay. And
this was after that whole debacle you're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah. That was just, I'm telling you, I still, and it's amazing. For anybody out there listening, by the way, I won the lawsuit. We were awarded a little bit over $3 million. We were awarded $2,715,000, and then we were awarded $279,000 additional. So we were awarded a little over $3 million. It's really easy for me to show you exactly what I've received with that award. It's there. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
I tell people, you get awarded something in the court, and everybody's so excited because you won. You won. Well, unless it's a Bernie Madoff situation or it's some big corporation that the courts, Ava, you would know, the courts don't they award you, they find the people guilty and they award you your quote award. You win your judgment, but they don't help you get your money. You then have to go find collectors to get your money. And this is now, in June, it's 4 years since and I don't, and my wife won't let it go, but I keep telling her don't forget about it. Never going to see that. But anyway, that's, there's this thing with the pandemic. I don't think even you know about this. You haven't talked about it yet, but my play, Papa the Man, the Myth, the Legend, which is a play that I co-wrote with, as a playwright with Ken Dose. Ken Dose is very well known for Breeze Lightning, which he wrote both the book and the movie for Richard Pryor. We have an investor now who says that he will be funding us on May 3rd. And if that happens, I've already talked to some very big, well-known stars out in California, because I don't do the play anymore. I was just asked 2 days ago. Had somebody call and said, "Jordan, I got a dinner theater down here in Florida. They're getting ready to reopen up, and they want you to do your Papa play."
That's great.
Well, I know, but he puts me in these conventions, but I told him, I said, "Jerry, I haven't done that role in over 8-9 years. I don't do the role anymore." And we were very successful with the play doing it. And you can go on Amazon and rent it or see it. It's called Papa, the Man, the Myth, the Legend. And it's just terrific. It's the best play ever done about Hemingway. And I was told years ago when the Schuberts offered me 3 theaters here in New York, I couldn't get the money on my name. But now I have some really big names. And this investor says he's putting the money up. So if Broadway does open in September, which I don't know, but if they open in September.
So tell us where to find that again. Where can we go find that? On Amazon, you said?
Yeah, on Amazon. On Amazon, I don't know why they have it set up this way, but you have to put in Jordan Rhodes, Hemingway, Papa, the Man, the Myth, the Legend. And you will see it's the play, because when we were
we're going to have to check that out, Jordan, and do like a little follow-up,
because it was still before a live audience in a 1,500 seat house. And I toured the play for 5 years. And then the economy started kind of going south, and people still wanted to book the play, but they just couldn't afford the play. They were calling me up, and this will sound so silly to particularly struggling young people out there, but they could only pay like $2,500 for the play. Now, if they were just asking me to come somewhere and do something for $2,500, in all probability, yes, I would do it. But we had a full play. We had a trailer, a set, a lighting director, and all, and we just couldn't take the play out for $2,500. And so I said to people, we're going to have to shut the play down. And somebody came to me, "Jordan, you can't close this play. You got to film it." And I said, "Oh, that sounds great, but we need some of that green stuff."
Green stuff, right? Where's that green stuff?
I love that.
Gotta have some of that green paper. And
Yeah.
but I got lucky. I met the only billionaire I ever knew, Jeff Schwartz. God rest his soul. I love him. And he had never invested in anything theatrical. He was the biggest single property owner in the entire Eastern Seaboard. He used to always tell me, Jordan, go find me a property. Find me a property. You make some money. Give me some money. But he just said he didn't know anything about my business. But over Thanksgiving dinner, he asked me how was it coming along with me finding investors to film my play. And I told him I was going to different sponsors. And he said, why don't you go to individuals? And I said, it's a fair amount of money. And he said, how much money do you need? And I didn't know he was talking about him, or I would have given him a big piece of the action. And right. I told him how much money I needed. And the next words out of his mouth was, he said, what does somebody get for that? And I told him, again, not knowing it was him, and because I would have given him 45, 50%. And right. I told him, and he said, okay. He said, I can do that. Come down to the office Friday, so I'll cut your check. And so that's how I became known as a producer, because I actually had 3 projects I was able to produce like that. Met one guy on a golf course who was a big fan of Chuck Connors. I was getting ready to do a documentary called The American Cowboy. Chuck Connors was the only actor in it. And I met him on a golf course out in California, where I used to live up in Bear Valley Springs. And
there's a picture of you and he in the book.
Yeah. Oh, I knew Chuck. Yeah, I knew Chuck for years. But this guy, Ace Fletcher, I went down to play golf one day. It was one of those community, closed gate community, because we had a golf course in there. And this guy was down there waiting to play golf. He didn't have anybody to play golf with him. I came down to play golf, and the host there, not the host, but the guy that ran the golf shop said, you guys want to hook up and play? So I met Ace, and he had told Ace that, he said, this guy's an actor, and he's also a writer and stuff. So we went out, we're playing golf, and Ace said to me, a guy told me you were doing something, a documentary about American cowboys. And I said, yeah. And he said, where are you going to shoot it? And I said, God, Ace, I said, I don't have a clue. I said, I don't have the money, I don't have a location. He said, well, I got a 25,000 acre cattle ranch in Springer, Oklahoma. And he said, you can shoot it there. And I said, well, okay. He said, I said, Chuck Connors is going to be in it. And I said, yeah. And I said, but I'll have to get the money. And he said, how much money do you need? And I told him my budget. And he said, I can do that. And he said, I got a private plane. He said, I can fly you guys from here out there to Springer, Oklahoma. And he said, would you introduce me to Chuck Connors? So that's how I came to write, direct, and produce The American Cowboy and start Chuck Connors to play on Disney for about a year.
That's building your connections right there, right?
But that's
building your connections.
But these young people call you up because they hear you're a producer. And I keep saying, yeah, but you got to understand how I found the money for these things. I said, producers really go out and have to beat the bush, and it's really tough. I said, if you tell some guy, hey, I need $175,000, and he goes, okay, I can do that. Well, that's not really what you have to do to produce. So this guy, if he puts some money up, we do that. But yeah, for people that want to go on to Amazon.com and rent or buy, or you can go to that same website, bluecollaractor.com, and the publishing company, CalCap Publishing, they're also selling my DVD if you want to buy that DVD. But you can go rent it on Amazon. But it is, we filmed it 2 live performances with 6 cameras. And the only reason we did it 2 times is that we wanted to have a run through for all the cameras. And so it basically was 2 live performances. But that's what it did. It took me a little over 6 months to edit it because it was 6 cameras. And I had, Narco, you probably know something about this, but some people said to me, well, Jordan, why in the world did you do it with the 6 cameras? Why don't you just use a switcher? And I said, well, it would have been a little difficult since I was on stage for 52 pages of dialogue doing the role. So I had to set up 6 cameras out in the auditorium and then had to tell each camera guy what I wanted him to do. That's how I directed it. But yeah, that happened with that. And if that opens on Broadway, you guys let me know. I'll get you tickets.
Yeah, so, that'd be awesome. We would love to. Yeah, that would be great.
I'll tell you this: the name that I'm talking to about doing it, if he does agree to do it, that's if we get the money, and he does agree to do it, it'll be in the booth and it'll sell out for he won't do it for probably more than 3 or 4 months because he's a huge name. and if he agrees to do it, and because it's basically on Broadway, it will be a 3-character play. It's the guy that does Hemingway. When I did it on the road, my wife Lynn played all 5 women in the play because
Oh, wow.
it's about Hemingway and the 5 women in his life, and it's the only time anybody's ever done anything like that. But anyway, enough of that.
That'll be something to look forward to. Yeah.
All of that information is in the book. Buy the book.
When we go to the website, you said there's another. What's the link where you could get the DVD and all that? Because I know there's a link that says buy the book.
Yeah, when you go on that website to buy the book, they have a little heading up there where they say audio, different thing. You just click on that, and the Papa DVD comes up. And
Nice.
that's how you get it. Or you can go on Amazon, and of course on Amazon you get it, or I guess you buy a screening of it. I don't know how that digital stuff works, but if you'd like to actually buy a copy of it, you can get that on the www.abluecollaractor.com website.
And Marco says he wants to meet you, so we're going to have to come into the city one of these days and take you to lunch.
Well, come on in. We'll have coffee or something, and things are. We were in a restaurant yesterday. Yeah, the Park Cafe.
But I don't think they'll be there
when you come back.
Yeah,
Sunday.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk to you about that after. Maybe we'll.
You have my email and my phone numbers and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so just let me know. We were yesterday at the Park Cafe over on 7th and 55th, and they're now up to 50% capacity. Because I don't want to get political.
Okay. That's good.
And
when we were there last time, we weren't doing too much indoor stuff, but I think they are now. They're indoor dining now a little bit, right?
There's indoor dining now. Yeah.
Oh, there are. Okay. Yeah. So with the weather being as nice as it is, almost every restaurant's got the cafe thing set up. The outdoor cafe thing. But yeah, you can actually go into restaurants now. You can go in the restaurant. Let me interrupt you for 1 second. Hey, Ruben, is it okay with everybody if we go to about 2:10?
That is fine.
Okay. All right. So figure we got a few extra minutes since we started a little late.
Okay.
I want to get back to that question about inspiring our youth, and what advice you might give to a young person who's dreaming about anything and not
even in the film, with the film.
In the film industry, anywhere.
I did film in high school for 3 years. My high school teacher works with Willie Nelson. He does Willie Nelson's music videos.
Oh yeah.
Produces them. His name is David Von Rome. I don't know if you know him. He's not that well known, but he's done a couple.
A Grammy or not a Grammy. No, he's some kind of film award.
He went to get an award for Willie Nelson. But I did 3 years of film and I love it. I just learn every day. I'll be looking at videos and looking at things and I just love it. But when the COVID hit, I kind of got down. Because it wasn't much to do.
Yeah, it shut everything down. It really did. But it's now it's not back. And of course, if you listen to all this political rhetoric going on, it's never going to be normal. But I think that's total bunk. Number one, in Connecticut, you may or may not know, Connecticut is almost fully open. That's almost completely fully open. And out in California, I just had some friends of mine out there tell me, I think this is strictly Newsom trying to save his fanny. But he said June 15th, he is opening up California 100%. That's what he said. Now, whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But if we do, I know here in New York now, the people misunderstood because they're talking about 35% of entertainment venues being open. So people read that to believe Broadway was opening. Broadway will never open yet. They will never open at 35 or 40% of capacity. They can't do it. But they're now saying that September looks really, really viable for that. But back to your question about encouraging the young people.
Yes.
Mostly have to talk to them from the standpoint of acting, directing, writing. I just had a young lady here, Megan, at the Paris Baguette coffee shop I go to. She handed me a script she wrote the other day. And she is the most, she's a very kind of, I don't want to say demure, but she's kind of a quiet, young lady, 23 years old and all that stuff. But she she has written one of the weirdest plays I've ever read. I really didn't write, but I spent an hour with her because she asked me one day, would I just have coffee with her? And the same thing that you're asking me is would I give her some advice? And I'm always happy to try and help young people. That's why I do some of these seminars that I do and all of that. I just try to tell them, you can't be, at the end of my book, I think it's in my acknowledgement section, I say something about, that winners never quit and quitters never win. And that to me is always, I was never very good at sports until I got older. I played golf. I played a pretty good game of golf. But basketball, I was really not any good. Football, I got hurt real early. But I had this one coach, and I really like to take what he said and put it into anything. And that is that he used to always tell us that, we lost a lot of games. He used to always tell us, we did not lose the game. We just ran out of time. We didn't lose the game. And so that to me is why, the other night on this thing, the guy called me Hollywood royalty, which I really find humorous. Because,
I don't know about that. Sounds pretty good to me.
I guess you've been around a long time and you've lived long enough, and of course you haven't upset too many people that you at least wind up not agreeing anymore to be a whipping. I was on Peyton Place. I had one director on Peyton Place that years later there was no director to treat me like that. I just wouldn't take it. But I was a young actor. Yeah. I would just I tell them, try not to get discouraged, because it's easy to get discouraged, but try not to get discouraged. If whatever area you're in, make sure that you study and and study as much as you can. I tell the actors, if a particular teacher will not let you monitor his class, then don't take that class. If you can't go in and monitor one of his classes, don't take that class. And I don't recommend classes for young actors that use the camera. For people like yourself that want to learn about technique and all of that and how you do it, then get involved with one of the classes that uses the camera and go and ask them, can I come and run the camera for you? Can I do that? I'll apply myself. And generally speaking, I would say that they would take you on. The reason I don't like young actors getting involved with the camera, I like to tell them in my class, I want them to be aware of where the camera is, but I want them to be aware of where the camera is so they can avoid the camera. Because when I've gone to these workshops where they use the camera, all of the young actors get involved. I shouldn't say all, there's never all of anything, but 90% of the young actors, when the scene is over, they don't really talk about the scene. They talk about, well, when I turn here this way, I didn't really like the angle on me because it looked a little funny, and I did this, and they're all concerned with the end result rather than how you get to that result. And so what I tell them, and like one young actor said to me one time, but how can you guarantee you're going to get your coverage when you have a small role in something? And I said, that's very easy. Go in there and do a job that knocks their socks off, and you'll get your coverage. If you go in and you do a job that the director, and this happened to me numerous times, I was doing something, and all of a sudden the guy would say, okay, cut, we're going to move in. The director would go, no, I want to come in, I want to get Jordan on this other reaction over here. And why does he want to do that? Because Jordan was damn good in that thing that he did, so the director is going to get that coverage. And I tell the young actors, if you do your job, bring something to the picnic. Because you invite somebody to a picnic. You don't want them to just show up, and don't just show up with a blanket. Bring some pickles, bring some chips, bring something to the picnic. And so as an actor, bring something to the picnic. And I also tell the young actors, and I used to do this particularly when I was working with Leo Penn, because they knew I knew Leo, and Leo used me a great deal. And somebody, a young actor would come to me and say, I got this great idea about this scene. You and I are doing this thing here, and I'm going to go to Mr. Penn, and I want to talk to him about what we, and I would say to him, don't do that. And they would go, and I said, this is television. They got 6-7 days to make this show. I said, show him in the rehearsal what you want to do. Show it to him. And that's where my whole acting philosophy comes from, because when I first came out to California, having come from Strasbourg and all Red Up and Dr. Ada Motloff and all of this stuff, I was considered a method actor. And, in those days, there was a method actor and a technique actor. And I just think that's a bunch of malarkey, because you're not going to tell me that people like Peter O'Toole, and Michael Caine, who never spent a day in the actor's studio, and maybe they're considered technical actors. You're not going to tell me that those guys are not tremendous actors. I mean, they're just, you find what works for you, and you find out what helps you get in touch with your emotions and the things that you can do and what you can bring across. And that's where I always tell young people I can try to help you, is try to show you if you do this. And back to one thing, I know I'm talking way too much here, but back to one thing. When I was asked that one time, one person in that panel thing asked me what made me become an actor. I said, it's really interesting because I've never been asked that before. I mean, at that particular time, I'm 50-some odd years in the business. No one ever asked me that. And I told her that the first taste of acting I ever got, and this is in my book, and Ava, if you read it, was in the 7th grade. A guy came to Hope Valley, and he had a Tom Sawyer operetta. And he went around all over the country to 7th grade students and had them do this Tom Sawyer operetta. I had a reputation in class because my family, we were always moving. And so I was always a new kid on the block, and you kind of build up this, it's your survival technique. And because I was kind of known as the smart ass in the class. And so when they came to the school, and I was sweet on this young girl, her name was Becky. I was sweet on her. It was the 7th grade. And the guy comes in and asks the teacher, asked us, would you like to do this play? And she said, I would love to do this operetta. She said, and I've got the perfect Tom Sawyer. It's Jordan Rhodes. To which Jordan Rhodes said, I ain't gonna do no stupid play. We're gonna do this. So she came to me and she said, if you will do Tom Sawyer and you will do all of the musical rehearsals and do all of the rehearsals, she said, for the entire time that you work on the play, and she cast Becky as Rebecca, the little girl with Tom Sawyer. So I could see on her. She said, and if you do all of that, I will not give you any homework for the entire time. So this old boy said, no homework, and I get to work and rehearse with my girlfriend. I'm in show business. And so I did Tom Sawyer, and that might be for the first time I got the bug bit me, because I will add this: neither my mom or my dad came to see the play, came to see the production, and it was 2 weekends, 2 Friday and Saturday, whatever it was. But I found out in the play that I could affect large groups of people. I could make them laugh. I could make them go. I just found I could do this stuff. So that kind of enticed me. And then once I went in, I went to see I saw James Dean in the first movie that he did, and I just decided I didn't quite understand exactly what it was he was doing, this acting thing, but whatever that was, I wanted to try to do that. And so basically it's that teacher that really got you started. Right? That teacher was the one that really got you started. Oh yeah. So Jordan, I just want to read one of these comments in your book because I find it fascinating. In a world of acting and theater, Jordan Rhodes is your guy. He is an actor's actor. He has seen and done it all and is uniquely qualified to tell the real story of life of the professional actor. That is such a compliment
that is so great. And I find that fascinating in the comments in your book.
Yeah, that came from, if I'm not mistaken, that came from a teacher or a president at one of the
Yeah,
universities.
president of Sandhills College, John Dempsey.
Yeah,
Yep.
where I did, Tom, Mr. Dempsey, Tom Dempsey. Yeah, we did Papa there, and then when we had the Papa was filmed, and I took it to a bunch of art houses, it was shown there. And of course, his anytime I go any place, and I think it's because I make myself available. I don't ever get annoyed by. I know I discovered when I was doing Streets of San Francisco that maybe I wasn't cut out really to be a superstar, because when you do come into people's living room every week or whatnot, and they see you out in a restaurant, they don't hesitate to come over to you. I mean, they're not going to approach Marlon Brando, and they're not going to approach, those guys. But, they knew me as, I was the lieutenant on the streets of San Francisco. So they knew I worked with Mike, who really was Carl Mullen. But they would come over to me in a restaurant and say, "Hey, how you doing? Look, I got this thing here. Would you sign this for my daughter?" And you go, yeah. And so I did all that stuff. So I had my fair share of that. But rather than getting a wall up, which I can understand some people, it happens so often that they do that. I've always made myself available to people that want to talk to me. Like we're taking out the life of a blue collar actor into a one-man presentation show that I'm going to be doing. And at the end of the show, I do a Q&A, which is I used to do also whenever we would show the pop-up film. At the end of the film, Lynn and I would come on stage and we would do a Q&A to the people, that wanted to stay. And so I think that makes you accessible, and people can do that. Right. So I hope I've answered some of your questions.
Yes, Jordan, thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm hoping that maybe after the book release, we could get you back sometime in the near future and come on again and talk about some of the success of the book. Again, it's 3 W's, of course, abluecollaractor.com. Pick up the book. It's a great read. Do you want to show it to us again, Jordan? I mean, I have a copy here, but I think it looks better with you showing it. Gee, that looks like you on the cover. But thank you so much for being with us.
One of my buddies that I've known for a really long time, he got the book, and he sent me a thing back and said he was really enjoying the book. And he said, "You were a handsome dude back then."
No, it's great. It's really great. And it's really a wonderful read. So I'm encouraging all of our listeners to, spread the word, go out and pick up the book and learn a little bit more about Jordan and his wonderful life and career as an actor. So we're going to close out, and I'm going to touch base with you by email and talk to you about us all getting together. And thank you, Ruben. Thank you, everybody at Hamilton Radio. Shout out to the Logan Bros. Shout out to Jerry Petito. And again, it's Ava's Casual Chat, Teens with Dreams. And we loved hearing from you, Jordan Rhodes, and we will talk again soon. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch soon. Ruben, you ready to take us out?
Teens with dreams. Teens with dreams.
This is the Legion.
Teens with dreams, yeah. All I wanna do is me when I grow up. Teens with dreams, yeah. All I wanna do is me when I grow up. Teen with a dream don't get no harder. Gets easy once you start it. No use in running away. Mr. Panting said you got it.
Yeah, you got that, and it feels so good to be on track. Even when you fall down, ain't no other way around. Your success is determined by your bounce back. Dream.